All right, next, the interim title bout at 135 pounds between Petr Yan and Cory Sandhagen. This is the fight by far that I'm most excited for on the whole fucking card. Fucking ESPN, I don't know why, but if I leave it up too long, if I leave a page up too long, it'll just start playing shit in the fucking background. Ads and all these like video clips and shit. Sorry if you guys heard that. Anyway, Petr Yan versus Cory Sandhagen. Great matchup. Cory Sandhagen is a guy who, okay, so I didn't interact with him at all, but it was like one of my first days at Easton Training Center, which is where I do jiu-jitsu. I'm a hobbyist. I'm not like a fucking world beater, right? But I was in the gym one day, and I remember walking out of like the changing rooms and coming around the corner and just seeing these guys like train on the end of the mat. And I remember thinking, like I was watching just the one guy's movement, and I was like, damn, that motherfucker's like slick, like real, like high level. And as I was walking out the door, I got closer, and I was like, oh fuck, that's Cory Sandhagen. Right. So it was kind of cool to experience that. And I'm obviously letting you guys know that I'm biased. Like, he trains for Elevation Fight Team, and I train at Easton Training Center, which like houses the pro team. Like, I have no interaction with this guy whatsoever. He doesn't even know who I am. Right. But I'm just obviously going to be rooting for him because he's based out of the fucking gym that I train at as a jiu-jitsu hobbyist. Right. So obviously I'm going to be biased in my selection. I'm going to put it on the table right now. But this matchup is really awesome for a lot of different reasons. So first off, let's talk about the strengths of like Petr Yan. Petr Yan is an excellent boxer. The way that he strings combinations together, the way that he understands footwork and positioning and timing and range and everything for how like small he is. He's never out of position with anything. I don't know how great his flat out wrestling is, but when guys close space against him and expose their back to him, especially like you saw a lot in the Aljamain Sterling fight, he's very good at just getting it to the ground quickly with a lot of trips and stuff like that, right? So I don't think he's the type of guy who's going to be chain wrestling up against the fence or anything like that. But when you get close to him, if you present him with the right angle, he's not afraid to hit trips and stuff like that, right? To get you to the ground. And when you get to the ground, he is constantly controlling your legs, keeping them elevated, keeping pressure with his own hips into yours, and he lands some serious ground and pound. Like, he does some serious work there, and he's constantly working to make sure that you're out of position. He's aggressive, he pushes forward a lot, and he's in like the prime of his career right now. He's 28 years old. Cory Sandhagen, on the other hand, is a guy, whereas Yan is much more, it's not that Yan doesn't move. Yan will switch stances, everything like that, but he's just much more like, he's going to look stationary compared to Cory. Let's say that. The way that Cory uses a lot of movement, a lot of in and out stuff, a lot of sniping you, getting out of the range of things and trying to draw you into traps and kind of move around the octagon and pull you into things and like get you moving in directions that you don't want to move, right? Really good with his footwork. Also switches stances a lot. I think he has a little bit more versatility in terms of the kicks and stuff that he can throw. He's going to have a lot more versatility in terms of like spinning shit and wild, flashy stuff that he throws. I think he has a little bit of an edge in one-punch knockout power. And by punch, I mean just any strike in general. And I think that he is super athletic. The thing that makes me nervous about this fucking fight is that Sandhagen, while I think his style is more calculated and I think it's more precise than Dominic Cruz's, like Dominic Cruz uses a lot of back. I'm not saying there's not a science to it, but he loops a lot of shots out there at weird angles. Like Cory's still pretty straight down the pipe. He stays pretty sharp fundamentally despite all the movement that he uses, right? And they just look a little bit different, like if you had a silhouette of them. But in terms of like what they do, they both back up and dance around the octagon and kind of blitz in and strike when they feel that the timing is right? They rely on their movement, like I said, to kind of set these traps. And what makes me nervous is that Petr Yan is such a good fucking boxer that if he just decides to sit in the pocket and throw combos when Cory comes in, it could be a real problem. And it kind of reminds me of what Cody Garbrandt did to Dominic Cruz. Where the guy who's patient and who isn't really moving around a lot just kind of sits there and waits for the right timing. And when this guy comes in, because a lot of the times when guys are explosive like that and they use a lot of in and out movement and stuff and they move a lot, they're not always super sound defensively because they're relying on their athleticism to get back out of exchanges. They have good head movement and stuff. Like Cory Sandhagen has good head movement, but I do think that there are opportunities for Jan to land when they're in the pocket when Sandhagen comes in with these strikes. So I think the key for Sandhagen to win this fight is that he's got to be managing distance very well. And that's going to mean using a lot of front kicks and a lot of kicks in general. I think he's got to be throwing a lot of leg kicks at Jan, low calf kicks, things that are going to be hard for Jan to catch and land a takedown off of. He's very good at catching kicks, so you have to be careful. It's just, I think that Cory has more variety in his striking game, but I'm worried that he could get into trouble with a guy who just sits down and throws really crisp combinations. Jan is also super aggressive, so if he decides to put the pressure on Cory, and he does a good job of the thing that Jan's going to have to do a good job of against a guy like Sandhagen is he has to cut the octagon off well. And I think that Jan's ability to transition in and out of stances fluidly is going to let him cut the octagon off for a little bit more effectively than you've seen guys do against Cory in the past. Like you saw Frankie Edgar get very mixed up in the footwork right away, right? I think that Jan is going to be able to kind of take those angles to cut Cory off, right? So I think that could be a problem for Cory. But overall, I think that Cory is the more gifted striker. And I think that this fight is primarily going to take place on the feet. And if Cory can do some small things, like limit the number of spinning attacks that you throw against this guy. We just talked about earlier how against like Aljamain Sterling, anytime Aljamain exposed his back, he would just like toss him on the fucking ground real quick, right? And Cory does have a tendency to expose his back. You kind of saw it in the TJ Dillashaw fight. He does it, right? An interesting thing to watch is going to be when they do go to the ground. We mentioned how good the ground and pound of Petr Yan is. Cory Sandhagen is a big guy. And one thing that he does really effectively is A, he hunts for submissions. He puts guys in danger a lot. But B, he wrestles with his fucking legs. A lot of the guys in the UFC that you see play guard from the bottom. And this is what got Jose Aldo into trouble. Like, he was playing more of a, like, kind of like a classic guard. You got to wrestle with your legs in the UFC if you're going to play bottom position and try to invert and shit like that. And Cory has a very firm understanding of when he's safe on the bottom, right? Like, you would see him, like, moving. He's manipulating the base and everything of TJ Dillashaw, landing some shots from the bottom. I'm not saying it's a good idea to be there, but I think that Sandhagen will be able to stay safe, more safe than Jan's opponents in the past have, and I think he'll be able to get back up to his feet just because of his size and everything, right? I think the size plays a big factor in this. Again, Jan also, I could talk about this fight all fucking day. Jan also fights at a very consistent pace. And another thing that makes me a little bit nervous is I think that Cory throws big explosive stuff early, and he's going to have to do a little bit better job with load management. I think towards the end of that TJ Dillashaw fight, he could have done with a little bit more volume and not taken. He took like breaks, I think, at a little bit of, I don't want to say breaks. He's in a fucking fight. That sounds like so disrespectful, but like, you know what I mean? Like just little moments where he could have done a little bit more. But I mean, that was kind of like his trial title run. Like a fight against TJ Dillashaw in a 5-round main event is about as close to a title fight as you can fucking get, right? Layoff or not, TJ Dillashaw is super fucking talented. So, man, it's tough. This is such a tough fight to pick. I think that Cory Sandhagen gets the win because I think that if you look at Aljamain Sterling, I know that he had like the commentators and everything like DC and Rogan were talking about the nervous energy from Sterling. It didn't matter though. He was still able to find, people forget, I know Jan won the fight and that it was trending towards Jan. And that if that fight goes 5 rounds, Jan is most likely your bantamweight champion, right? But people kind of forget the success that Sterling was having against Jan in the striking department by keeping pressure on him, right? So I think the key for Sandhagen is going to be he has to, early on, he has to establish his range. And as he does that, I think he has to draw offense out of Petr Yan and look to counter a little bit. Because I think that if he just goes in there and tries to find if he's hopping in, like with things, and he doesn't set up his range really well first and establish it and kind of draw some misses out of Jan first, I think Jan's going to kind of do what Garbrandt did to Cruz and just sit in the pocket, wait for the right timing, wait for Sandhagen to come to him, and he's going to crack him with combinations to the body, to the head, and then just kind of start piling it on as the fight goes on. So I think it's very important for Cory Sandhagen to utilize his range in this fight, do so effectively, and set the tone early on. If not, man, I don't know if Jan's the guy that you want to get behind against, because he's the guy who trends very well towards the end of fights. As it gets into the third, fourth, and fifth round, he's going to keep on coming strong. He's going to keep on picking up momentum, and you really have to, I feel like, get him out of his groove early on in the fight. And like I said, another reason that I'm taking, and especially as a big underdog, Cory Sandhagen is like a plus 190 favorite right now. To me, those odds are crazy. I think that this matchup is so fucking close. And I do think that Jan deserves to be the favorite just based on everything that he's done so far. But plus 190, I think that there's just too much value on Cory Sandhagen not to put money on him on this. And I think he has a greater than 50%. I shouldn't say greater than 50%, but whatever the implied odds are of plus 190, he has a greater chance than that to win. I can tell you that right now. Like, Cory Sandhagen is extremely gifted, extremely talented, very athletic, one of the most diverse strikers in the entire division, and he can shut your lights off like that. I mean, I thought the odds would be closer. Like, I understand. Jan is very good. Like, I think that Jan could, this is a coin flip fight to me. I think both guys could come out and both really find success against each other, but I just think Sandhagen's going to get it done. And obviously the fact that I'm biased is, I'm letting it be well known, but I really do think that he's going to win. I honestly believe that he has all the tools necessary. I think he's kind of in the prime of his fighting career. And I think that experience against TJ Dillashaw is invaluable, and he knows what it's like to go 5 rounds down. I think he's going to make the necessary corrections. I think he's going to be more selective about when to throw the wild spinning stuff, and I think he's going to stay fundamentally sound for the most part. And I think, I think he's capable of picking Jan apart. It's just a matter of establishing the range and sticking to the fucking game plan. So we'll see. I'm definitely excited for this fight, though, if you guys couldn't tell.